الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Surah At-Talaq, Surah number 65 and Ayah number 6. Ayah number 6 in Surah At-Talaq. We'll start with the recitation inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم من وجدكم ولا تضاروهن لتضيقوا عليهن وإن كن أولات حمل فأنفقوا عليهن حتى يضعن حملهن. Sleepy or tired? Try the easy voice. فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن فآتوهن أجورهن فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن وأتمروا بينكم بمعروف وإن تعاسرتم فسترضع له أخرى لينفق ذو سعة من سعته ومن قدر عليه رزقه فلينفق مما آتاه الله لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما آتاها سيجعل الله بعد عسر يسرا. That are easy but requires more effort inshallah ta'ala because of the length of the ayat and then the way that with the plural and the feminine and things like this. So the ayah number 6 أسكنوهن نون والشدة أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم إخفاء من وجدكم. Say من وجدكم. وجدكم. The dhamma on the waw. ولا تضار هنا, this is the longest mad, 6 counts, and then you have shadda on the ra. تضاروا. تضارهن, and then the nun with shadda. لتضيقوا, تاء ضاد, ضاد is heavy. لتضيقوا. Say لتضيقوا. لتضيقوا عليهن, نون الشدة. وإن إخفاء. وإن كن أولات حمل. أولات حمل, you don't stretch the dhamma sound. As you see, there's like a circle on top of the waw. So it's أولاتي, not أولاتي. أولاتي. And then also the kasra does not have a ya. So أولات حمل. You can take it quickly. أولات حمل إخفاء. حمل فأنفقوا عليهن, نون الشدة. حتى يضعن حملهن. If you stop at a نون الشدة, takes 2 counts. فإن أرضعن لكم. فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن. There's a همزة with فتح and then ألف, so you stretch it. فآتوا, the same thing with the ضمة after it واو. فآتوهن أجورهن, the same thing, you stretch the ضمة sound in the جيم. أجورهن. وأتمروا, here وأتمروا, the همزة has a سكون. وأتمروا بينكم بمعروف, إخفاء. وإن تعاسرتم فسترضع له مد أخرى. لينفق, إخفاء. لينفق, لذا سكون النقاف. ذو سعة من سعته, سين هذا فتحة. ومن قدر, إخفاء. ومن قدر عليه رزقه فلينفق, إخفاء, and then the قاف هذا سكون. فلينفق مما, نون ميم مشدة, and then you have مد. آتاه الله, you see همزة ألف and then تاء ألف, so you stretch each one. آتاه الله. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا ما, this is mad for counts. آتاها, the same thing. Don't kind of take one and not the other. سيجعل الله, the جيم with سكون. سيجعل الله بعد عسر يسرا, تنوين after it ياء, إضغام. So since there are أسكنوهن and تضاروهن and يضعن حملهن, أرضعن, no words, and so that's inshallah easy, inshallah. So the ayah number 6, the translation first, which says roughly, lodge them where you dwell according to your means. Do not treat them in such a harmful way that they be obliged to leave. And if they are pregnant, then spend on them till they deliver. Then if they give suck to the children for you, give them their due payment, and let each of you accept the advice of the other in a just way. But if you make difficulties for one another, then some other women may give suck for him, meaning the child. So these are some of the rules, ahkam, with regards to the iddah. Continuing with the subject of al-iddah and the rights of the wife in the iddah. The ayah askinuhunna. So askinuhunna, this is a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the men. Askinuhunna, from a second home. So askinuhunna, that means make them stay in their homes or make them have homes. This is the responsibility of the man in the iddah, that the wife, she stays at home. She is not to be expelled from it. Askinuhunna, and this command is to the men. Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he says, تقدم, means it's been mentioned before, أن الله نهى عن إخراج المطلقات عن البيوت, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbade expelling the mutallaqat, the divorced women, from the homes. as it's mentioned previously in the verses. In the verses, لا تخرجوهن, do not take them out. وهنا, and here, أمر بإسكانهن, here commanded for them to be housed, to be lodged. وقدر الإسكان بالمعروف. The iskan is measured by the ma'ruf, but by what is known to be good, according to one's capacity and according to the norm of the people. And all of these things is, as the ayah says, وَلَا تُضَرُّهُنَّ, do not harm them, because again, when people, they have disputes or they divorce, the nafs, the evil within oneself, can make a person revenge, can make a person, when people, they try to apply the law in their own favors, so they say, well, it says, uh, have them stay in a place. So he makes a place 1 foot long, and that's a place. So it has to be based on the ma'ruf, based on what is known to be good. So وقدر الإسكان وقدر الإسكان بالمعروف أسكنوهن وهو البيت الذي يسكنه مثل ومثلها, the housing or the house or the place where he would normally live in and the like of her would live in. أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم. See how the precise wordings, that you make them stay and live in where you would live. So not just any place. So بحسب وجد الزوج وعسره. So the ayah says أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم. So it's all about the second, the house, the place to live. من حيث سكنتم, from where you would live. So in the same place, not a separate thing on the side or anything like this. من وجدكم, from your وجد. وجدكم, kum, this means your. وجدكم, الوجد is your capacity, your ability. So أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم من وجدكم. So according to your capacity. So if a person is rich, then it's going to be accordingly. If he's poor, then according to his capacity. Each one according to their capacity, but the responsibility upon the husband. So min wujidikum. And al-wujd, from when you find something, and al-wujd also, it's a word that they use when you find, what the people talk about purification of the soul. Sometimes it's abused. They judge what they find in themselves of taste and feelings and things like this. So min wujidikum. وَلَا تُضَارُّهُنْ. So the command here is not just أسكنوهن, but according to your capacity, from where you would live. وَلَا تُضَارُّهُنْ, do not do not have the madarra, the harm. Do not harm them. لِتُضَيِّقُوا عَلَيْهِنْ, to make it tight for them. الضيق is tightness. To make it tight for them, meaning for the women. أي لا تضارُّهُنْ, do not harm the women. عند سكناهن, whenever they are living, whenever they are, you're spending on them, they are sitting or they're living in the time of the iddah. بالقول أو الفعل. And the harm here is with speech and actions. Do not harm them with your speech. Do not harm them physically. And when someone would do this in this type of situation, لتضيقوا عليهن, so that it makes it tighter for her, so that they لأجل أن يمللن, so that she would be bored or tired of it. So فيخرجن من البيوت, so she would leave, which is a normal thing. If he's making it difficult for her, then she wants to leave. قبل تمام العدة, before the waiting period would end. So, and this is something that is not permissible. So it's the duty upon the husband to make it easy for the one that he divorced, and with whatever, even if it's this disputes or not, it doesn't matter, so that she stays in her place, in her home, in a comfortable way, so that he does not make it difficult for her, so that she would leave. She said, I cannot stay here anymore, because he is harming her with speech or actions. But rather to be generous and to be kind and to make her live comfortably in the place. And he does this for the sake of Allah, because this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered. قبل تمام العدة فتكونوا. So if that happened, if the husband or the man would make it difficult, trying to harm her with speech or action to make it tight for her, and she leaves, then he becomes the one that, or the reason why she left. قبل تمام العدة فتكونوا أنتم المخرجين له. So you become you yourself the one that took her out. So instead of saying, oh yeah, it's haram to say, don't live here, go find somewhere else, because this is not permissible for him to say that, so then he will do something else, make it come from her. by making it difficult for her. So this is not permissible, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the hearts. وحاصل هذا, so the what this basically means أنه نهي عن إخراجهن. It's nahi. It's forbidding the men to expel them out or to make them leave from their homes before the iddah ends. وَنَهَاهُنَّ عَنِ الْخُرُوجِ. And he forbade them, the women, from leaving. So both. The man is forbidden to make his wife leave, and the wife is forbidden for her to leave. So that's why the order comes for both. It's not permissible for her to leave unless there's harm. And he's not permissible to let her leave, and he should treat her well so that it does not become a reason for her to leave. وَأَمَرَ بِسُكْنَهِنْ, and that means he commanded, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the men to make them have the place for them to stay. على وجه لا يحصل به عليهن ضرر ولا مشقة. In such a way, على وجه, we heard this many times, on a way that there's no harm is afflicted upon them and no difficulty, no harshness, no difficulty. And how to get this correct? What is the criteria? What is the limits of comfort and not comfort, harsh or harm or whatever? وذلك راجع إلى العرف. This is to be referred to as the urf, the norm. So this is the norm of how people, for example, if they were living before, this is how they lived. So he continued to make her live the same way, not to make it difficult for her. So it depends on the person himself, his ability, and the norm of the people, according to his capacity. So he says, وَإِن كُنَّ أُولَاتِ حَمْلٍ, and if they are, meaning the مطلقات, وَإِن كُنَّ, referring to the divorced woman. أُولَاتِ حَمْلٍ, that means she is pregnant. أُولَاتِ حَمْلٍ, that means they are carrying, being pregnant. فَأَنْفِقُوا عَلَيْهِنْ, then spend on them حَتَّى يَضَعْنَ حَمْلَهُنْ, till they deliver their haml, what they're carrying, which is till she delivers what's inside. وَذَلِكَ لِأَجْلِ الْحَمْلِ الَّذِي فِي بَطْنِهَا. So, of course, spending is obligatory upon the husband because of the fact that she's pregnant, and her iddah is till she delivers what she's carrying. فإما, then after that, he says, وذلك لأجل الحمل الذي في بطنها إن كانت بائنا. If she was بائنا, البائن, as we said, is when the divorce is final, he still has to spend till she gives birth. Because of the divorce, if it's the first one or the second one, the iddah period is known, 3 menses. Or if she does not have menses, then it's 3 months, as mentioned before. This is for the first and the second divorce. This is an obvious one. For the third divorce, after the third divorce, it is not permissible for her to stay in the house of the husband because it's a final one. This is the irrevocable one. So in that case, she has to leave. And there's no nafaqah, there's no spending from the husband on her or anything, unless she's pregnant. If she's pregnant, then he has to spend on her and he has to find a place or have a place for her, but not with him, because now they divorced the third divorce till she give birth. He says, إن كانت بائنا ولها ولحملها إن كانت رجعية. So if she stays after the third divorce, it's because she's pregnant. And for her and for the fact that she's pregnant, if she is raj'iyya, if she is in a revocable divorce after the first or the second one. Clear? ومنتهى النفقة حتى يضعن حملهن. What is the end of spending on her with al-ma'ruf and placing her in a house and so on, is till she deliver her pregnancy. فإذا وضعن حملهن, وضعن الوضع, as we said, to something comes down, so when she delivers, فإما أن يرضعن أولادهن أو لا. So now we have a child. The child has to be breastfed. So either she would do this or she won't do it. Not all women, they would breastfeed. فإن أرضعن لكم, this is again after divorce. There's a divorce. So, and then once she gave birth, the iddah is over. So there's no 3 menses anymore. So if he divorced his wife before she gave birth by 1 hour and she delivers, that's it. There's no iddah. The one that her husband dies while she's pregnant, there is the 2 opinions, whether it's when she delivers because of this ayah, or the longest of the 2 periods, 4 months and 10 days, or pregnancy. But again, this is a matter of fiqh. But here, if she gave birth, then now there is the fostering the child or breastfeeding the child. فإن أرضعن لكم فآتوهن أجورهن. So if she breastfeed his son, which is her son, and she is divorced, then فآتوهن أجورهن. The husband is to pay her for this, even though it's her own son. But this is the responsibility, since he is financially responsible towards his wife. If she is his wife, she has no financial responsibility whatsoever. It's fully upon the husband. And they're now divorced. So he has no financial responsibility over her. But his son, he has to spend on her, on him or her, his son or his daughter. And she can breastfeed and out of her goodness, mashallah, but she can receive payment as a result of that, since he's not spending on her. فآتوهن أجورهن. He says المسمى لهن, what is to be agreed upon and also to be given according to the norm, to the ma'ruf. إن كان مسمى, if it's something that is specified, then he gives what has been agreed upon. وإلا فأجر المثل. If they did not agree upon something, then the payment to be given according to the like of the same situation. If someone else would breastfeed, how much she would take. وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوف. This is her right. She can give that away. It's up to her. وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوف. And because of this, when you have a relationship reach that level, and she would be given payment because khalas, they're gone, they're done with the relationship. There's no relationship between them anymore, but there's a child. So with that, this can lead people to have greed or to have enmity, whatever. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوف. وَأْتَمِرُوا from al-amr. Both of you should command what is ma'ruf and what is goodness, and to fear Allah, and not to have the concern of how to revenge and how to get whatever she can or whatever he can from the other side, and abusing the rights of the children or abusing one another. وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوف. With ma'ruf. And ma'ruf here is nakira. That means all kinds of things that can become or under the category of al-ma'ruf. What's known to be good. Like, you know how even in laws, when they say reasonable this and reasonable doubt, the people of reason, when people have goodness in their hearts and you look at a situation, is that a good thing? When people, for example, they are in a dispute, husband and wife, or they divorced, and he says, nothing, I'm going to take this, I'm not going to give this, and she says something else. When you look at it, if someone from a neutral place, he would say, is that a good thing? Is that out of their goodness? Or everyone wants to, each one wants to revenge from the other side? So there's major difference between both. So that's why وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ بِمَعْرُوف. What if one side is not acting upon the ma'ruf? You are commanded as one side to deal with matters with ma'ruf. And also the other side. And he says, وَلْيَأْمُرْ كُلُّ وَاحِدٍ مِنَ الزَّوْجَيْنِ وَمِنْ غَيْرِهِمَا الْآخَرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. وَأْتَمِرُوا بَيْنَكُمْ. That means you become upon doing what is good, and you command the others to do what is good. So each one of them would advise and command the other, and other than them would also command them, to remind them to act upon al-ma'ruf. وهو, what is the ma'ruf? وهو كل ما فيه منفعة. Everything that has benefit. ومصلحة. Maslaha is also the benefit and good things في الدنيا والآخرة. In this dunya and the matters of the hereafter. And when a person again have carrying grudges or so, sometimes he's blind, he's not able to see what is ma'ruf. So he has to fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فإن الغفلة عن الائتمار بالمعروف. If people have ghafla, heedlessness from enjoining the ma'ruf and commanding one another to be upon al-ma'ruf, يحصل فيه من الشر والضرر ما لا يعلمه إلا الله. Then evil and harm will be afflicted in such a way that no one knows except Allah. And there's no limits to it. If people do not enjoin what is good, the evil can go to, very far. People can take matters in a very far state when it comes to the harm. He says, وَفِي الِائْتِمَارِ. This is al-i'timar. Al-amr is when you command. And when both are commanding, so this is وَأْتَمِرُوا. And al-i'timar, the noun of al-amr. In enjoining what is good and commanding what is good, تعاون على البر والتقوى. This is helping one another in matters of righteousness and the taqwa and the fear of Allah. ومما يناسب هذا المقام. and what befits perfectly this state when people are in that state, divorced and عدة and things like this. أن الزوجين عند الفراق وقت العدة, when the spouses, when they are departing from one another as a result of the divorce, in the time of the عدة, in the time of the waiting period, خصوصا إذا ولد لهما ولد, especially if they have a child born during the عدة. في الغالب, most likely, الغالب is what the norm is, usually people يحصل من التنازع والتشاجر لأجل النفقة عليها. They will have dispute and fighting with each other for what, when it comes to spending on her, what is the obligation to spend on her, وعلى الولد, and on the child, مع الفراق, when they are departing from one another. Because now he's not responsible and he doesn't want to spend on her because she divorced him or she wants to, whatever the thing is, but he has a child now. So this is all grounds for dispute and for people to fight with each other. الذي في الغالب ما يصدر إلا عن بغض, which is more likely comes as a result of بغض or hatred. ويتأثر منه البغض شيء كثير, and the hatred would affect the matter so much. So that's why the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowingly what's inside of the hearts, so you have to overcome this and to do what is right and not let the hatred in your heart or the whatever the enmity causes to not to apply the rights of others. And if you really pay attention to the commands of Allah, especially with relationships, when a person reflect upon it, you would see that it's only the commands comes when the nafs has something else, when oneself, the greed of oneself, try to pull the person away from this. Like as the famous example, you won't find verses that talks about the parents to love their children, for example, or to treat them well, because it's a normal thing. It's the nafs, the normal people, normal human being, they have this. But the opposite, the commands from Allah to be kind to the parents. That means the child, when he grow up, he doesn't have this in himself. He would have something to struggle with. So that's why the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have to overcome yourself, especially when they're very old in age. The same thing, the command to the woman to be kind to her husband, because the shaitan would not let her to do this. It's against herself. So she has to exert herself, and the same thing for the husband, and so on. So this is how the commands from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this context of divorce and iddah and so on, for those who are attached to the book of Allah, they will act differently than what people would normally act. وَإِن تَعَاسَرْتُمْ, and if you are ta'asartum, if it's difficult, al-usr is the tightness, difficulty in money and things like this, بأن لم يتفقوا على إرضاعها لولدها, with regards to breastfeeding the child. وإن تعاسرتم, she doesn't want to breastfeed the child, or she's asking for too much money, more than what the norm, or he cannot afford it, what she's asking for. فلترضع له أخرى غيرها وإن تعاسرتم فسترضع له أخرى. Then find someone else, because this is the right of the child. He needs to be breastfed. So then another woman would breastfeed the child. فلا جناح عليكم إذا سلمتم ما أتيتم بالمعروف. Then in that case he would have someone else to breastfeed the child. وهذا حيث كان الولد يقبل ثدي غير أمه. This is in the case where the child is able to or have the ability to breastfeed from other than his mother. فإن لم يقبل إلى ثدي أمه, if he does not accept any breast except his mother, تعينت لإرضاع, then it becomes an obligation upon her, because he doesn't have anyone else. And the artificial stuff, it's not in the subject even. People should not nowadays say, then let him, the formula. So it is his right to have a normal breastfeeding, unless they're not able to. And that's why even for mothers, if she's not able to breastfeed her child, because she should, if she is not able to, before, again, the norm is before she would go to and use the formula, she should find someone else, another woman, to breastfeed her child, if it's feasible, of course. I mean, nowadays, for example, where is this? And it used to be a job, woman murdi'a, she would make money as a result of this. And this is more for the right of the child, more than comes before the formula than all of these types of things. So here, this is ruling if he's not accepting any other woman to breastfeed him, then it's an obligation upon the mother to do so. وأجبرت إن امتنعت, and the judge for example would enforce it upon her if she refuses. وكان لها أجرة المثل, and he would make sure that she get whatever the norm in the society that they're in, the payment that she would get. إن لم يتفقوا على مسمى, if they don't agree with one another upon a specific amount of money. He says وهذا مأخوذ من الآية الكريمة من حيث المعنى. This is to be taken from the ayah according to the meaning. فإن الولد لما كان في بطن أمه مدة الحمل ليس له خروج منه. If since the child in the womb of his mother while she's pregnant, he has no way out of that. عين تعالى على وليه النفقة. So since the child is in the womb of his mother and she's divorced, then the wali, the guardian, he has to spend on him. فلما ولد, then when he comes out to this world and he's delivered, وكان يمكن أن يتقوت من أمه, and he was able, there's a chance, يتقوت, القوت is the necessary nutrition. He has the means to have that from his mother ومن غيرها, and from other than his mother. أباح تعالى الأمرين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it permissible. So it doesn't have to be only the mother, it can be someone else. فإذا كان بحالة لا يمكن أن يتقوت إلا من أمه. But if he doesn't have any other choice but his mother, no one to breastfeed him, no one that he's accepting to breastfeed from, كان بمنزلة الحمل, then the ruling becomes as if she's still pregnant with the child. Can she, while she's pregnant and they're divorced, for example, she says, I don't want this baby anymore, so she aborted, it's not permissible. So the same thing, now she has a child and she doesn't want to breastfeed the child. And there's no other choice but that. Then it becomes fard, obligation upon her, and it's the same ruling as if she is pregnant, because otherwise the child will be harmed as a result of that. وتعينت أمه طريقا لقوته. Then his mother becomes the obligation for him to sustain his life and to be breastfed and to have the normal, which is the right. It's the right of the child to be breastfed. And this is verses in the Quran talks about this matter. So أسكنوهن من حيث سكنتم من وجدكم, from your capacity, ولا تضارهن. This is to the woman, the rights of the wife when she's divorced. Do not make it difficult for her, do not harm her, to make it tight for her. وإن كن أولات حمل, and if they have pregnancy, فأنفقوا عليهن حتى يضعن حملهن, spend on them till they deliver from their pregnancy. فإن أرضعن لكم, if they breastfeed your child, فآتوهن أجورهن, then you give them their payment or their money. وأتمروا بينكم بمعروف, and enjoying what is good among one another. وإن تعاسرتم فسترضع له أخرى, and if it's difficult for you or she's refusing or whatever, then another woman would breastfeed according to what we just heard. And if of course if she's, after she's divorced, there's no responsibility financially on her ex-husband, if it's correct to say, unless she's having a child from him and she's breastfeeding the child. So he still have to spend on her and the child, for the child. And he would have a place for them, and they're divorced. And why? Because she's taking care of the child. Till, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy. So we'll stop here inshallah, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us benefit from what we heard. صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.